When my son was 2 years and 8 months old, I noticed that he had not developed any speech or any brain development whatsoever that I could notice since he was 11 months old. And I became very concerned. So I kept talking to people, my friends and family at holidays and family gatherings at church. And all of my friends and family said, "Oh, don't worry, kids develop on their own time schedule. Um, you know, you live in a multilingual household, so they start talking later in life. They wait a little bit longer than other kids that have a single language spoken in their house." And so I was comforted by my family and friends. And then it got closer and closer to his third birthday, and I thought, there's why isn't he developing? Why isn't he developing any words at all? Not a single word. And so I went to this website, and it was talking about language and speech therapy, and people charge thousands of dollars a month to teach your kids to talk, to try to progress them, and with very slow results. And then I was looking at the comments, and almost all of them were just people comforting each other. "Oh, don't worry," people same kind of things I was hearing from my family and friends. Then I saw this one comment, just this one brave person in a sea of comments, and just simply put, they said, "It's certainly not normal for you to not be able to understand what your 3-year-old says." And when I saw that, he was very close to being 3 years old. And that's when my stomach turned over, and I stopped putting the thoughts in the back of my head, and I started doing research. So I started coming across videos of other people, and I was like, where are these videos? They're so hard to find. And I realized a lot of them were taken down, censored over the years. And I wonder why. Could it be that the companies that benefit from these videos not being so widely spread are making hundreds of billions of dollars a year off of our kids? Okay, let's check out some of the videos.
Tiana, look at me. Give me.
3-year-old Indiana is in intensive therapy.
Look at me. Look at me.
It's a daily struggle for his parents to simply reach their son, who they've lost to autism.
Look at me.
He's just sits there, or spins around, and just not communicating at all, like a zombie.
Look at me.
Now, I saw some similarities in some of these videos to my own child. So I took some videos just to kind of see if I could compare them.
What you doing, buddy? What are you playing with?
The difference is startling. Fleur and Grant Hume say this home video of their son shows a bubbly toddler developing normally.
Oh, he was just the most interactive little boy.
He was so playful. He was always just running around, running up to you, hugging you. And we thought he was actually developing early because his speech really started coming on really quickly. And we thought, we've got a genius on our hands.
Tummy. Just after his first birthday, Indiana changed, withdrawing completely.
It's pretty heart-wrenching as a parent to see that. You look at your child and you think, where's my little happy boy gone? Where's he gone?
So what happened?
Within 2 weeks of the MMR injection, he had such a profound change of his personality.
He had language loss. He started...
So here's a video of my son. This is a video of my son when he's 10 months old.
Yeehaw!
This is a picture of my 10-month-old son and my wife and I at a restaurant sitting down eating dinner. And his eyes are completely focused on our eyes. He's engaged with everything and everybody that's around him.
Club, 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 club. Very
This is my son at 9 months old.
Club, club. Very
He's
nice.
learning to clap. He's taking instructions from my wife. He's developing at a rapid pace. All the way up until he was close to 1 year old. He developed so fast. He would watch us do computer work. We were both working from home because it was during the COVID lockdown. And he would mimic our office work. He would literally
office work?
do computer work the
Are you
same
doing your
way that
office
we
work?
did it.
Huh? Are you doing all the calculations and typing papers? Oh, good job, man. You're a fast typer.
He was so engaged. He learned so quickly, and he was so up in our business all the time, and just engaged with everything we were doing. That when my wife cooked dinner or breakfast or anything, she would have to put a cooler in front of the kitchen to block him because he was always trying to help her cook, and she couldn't get anything done. So this cooler is literally there to block him from engaging with her so that she could have a few minutes to cook dinner.
Dance.
That's how much he wanted to engage with the people around him up until he was 1 year old. He loved music, he danced,
Ooh, dance.
he stared people in the eyes, he studied facial expressions, he had every facial expression.
Yeah.
He was developing his speech. And then he stopped developing. And I was thinking, what happened around the time he was 1 year old? What happens to kids around the time they're 1 year old? What could have happened to change this trajectory of his development and make it stuck for the last 2.5 years? He has not developed a single bit of brain activity past what he had when he was 11 months old. This is Robert De Niro. You might know who he is. He was in charge of starting a film festival, and he pulled a video off of the main stage of that film festival. And this is him talking about the reasons why he did that.
We're back at 8:45. The Tribeca Film Festival was first launched to help revitalize Lower Manhattan after the 9/11 attacks.
Tonight it kicks off with a celebration of its 15th year. Oscar winner Robert De Niro and producer Jane Rosenthal.
Now I'm going to fast forward it a little bit, so when he starts talking about the reason he pulled the video. And this video was scheduled to premiere at 2 different film festivals, and it was pulled for 2 different reasons. Here's the first reason.
Then forget it.
There was a bit of controversy, some headlines at the beginning of this year's festival when it was announced that this film called Vaxxed would be screened at the festival. Later, the festival pulled it. Was it because of the backlash? Were you surprised that people reacted the way that they did?
I was shooting a movie. I was in the middle of a lot of stuff. I think the movie is something that people should see. There was a backlash which I haven't fully explored, and I will. And I didn't want it to start affecting the festival in ways that I couldn't see. But definitely there's something to that movie. And there's another movie called Trace Amounts. And there's a lot of information about things that are happening with the CDC, the pharmaceutical companies. There's a lot of things that are not said. I, as a parent of a child who has autism, I'm concerned, and I want to know the truth. And I'm not anti-vaccine. I want safe vaccines. When you get, some people can't get a certain type of shot, and they can die from it. You know, even penicillin. So why should that not be with vaccine, which it isn't?
So you
That's
said,
all.
you went public for the first time saying that your 18-year-old son does have autism.
Yes.
That had been a very private thing for you. And
Yes.
part of the reason you wanted this film shown was to start that conversation.
Absolutely.
Do you believe you'll now have a role in that conversation going forward?
Possibly, yes. Because the thing is that to shut it down, there's no reason to. If you're scientists, let's see, let's hear. Everybody doesn't seem to want to hear much about it. It's shut down. And you guys are the ones that should be the investigating. Do the investigating.
Ouch. So he might sound like he's calm, but he just ripped those journalists, so-called journalists, a new one right there and put them in their place. When you report the news, you're supposed to report the facts and let people decide what the truth is. Not cover things up, not censor speech. Here's another video. This one is about the other, I believe this is the one about the other film festival that was going to premiere this movie, and they pulled it. Here's the reason why they pulled it.
Also new at 10 o'clock, controversy brewing over this documentary. It's about vaccinations and their perceived link to autism. And it has just been pulled from a Houston Film Fest. The decision comes after it was also removed from the Tribeca Film Festival lineup. Our Keith Garvin live now with why the film was removed from the lineup. Keith.
Well, Sarah, we're still waiting to hear from the mayor's office, but the film's producers say it was pulled because it conflicts with the city's initiatives on vaccinations. But festival organizers say they do confirm that grant money was on the line.
My oldest son, Ian, was walking and running. After the vaccine, he was no longer able to do that.
It's only had an extremely limited release, and this documentary already is stirring up controversy. The film is called Vaxxed, which explores purported links between vaccines and the rise in autism. Scheduled to appear at the 49th Annual World Fest Houston Film Festival, even after the film was pulled for eligibility reasons, its producers say the festival was pressured and threatened to not show it.
The public deserves to be able to see this film if they choose to do so.
The film's researcher shared an email exchange she says is between her and a festival official. The official supposedly wrote, "After very threatening calls late yesterday from high Houston government officials, we had no choice but to drop the film. They threatened severe action against the festival if we showed it, so it is out. Their actions would have cost us more than $100,000 in grants." We spoke to the festival's founding director, who says there's no way the film was going to show.
Of course not, because we would have lost about $100,000 in sponsorship overnight.
And that's because of the pressure you will receive.
Yeah, exactly.
The film's producers believe the alleged negative response by government officials will only serve to make more people want to see it.
The documentary was born to try to get the story out there to as many people as possible.
And we have reached out to the mayor's office and are waiting for a response. In the meantime, the film's producers say that it will show at several other festivals across the country and will open at theaters nationwide in the coming weeks. Report live from Southwest Houston, Keith Garvin, KPRC Channel 2 News.
So, what happens if you try to watch this movie that was censored and pulled off of all these film festivals? If you try to watch it free on a streaming service such as YouTube or any other free streaming service that I know of, or just find it and just start watching it, you can't. I couldn't, at least. Because when I tried to, if I tried to, I tried to watch it, and it was censored. So if I go to YouTube, and then I search for the movie, and then I try to watch it, it says the video has been removed for violating YouTube's guidelines. And then it talks about the CDC's vaccination recommendations. And if you click learn more, it cites that you know, this video could not be shown to anyone due to the community's health and safety risk. Are you kidding me? For real? So you can't let someone talk about their stories of the harm that has done to their kids on thousands of cases because of health and safety? So the only way to watch it that I found is you have to buy it. So I bought it. So here it is.
In California, the worst measles outbreak in 15 years is spreading.
The virus is roaring back into the headlines tonight. An outbreak somehow traced to...
Someone who had probably caught measles abroad visited Disneyland and may have sneezed.
Measles on the march in America.
This outbreak is showing no signs of letting up. There are already more cases this year than there were.
The number tripled to 644 measles cases reported in 27 states.
And I mean, is this all basically because of the anti-vaccination movement, because parents aren't vaccinating their kids?
Yeah, you know, I think so.
A bill that would ban exemptions from childhood vaccines is advancing through the California legislature.
We are authoring legislation that will abolish the personal belief exemption.
I think you're starting to see why it is that mandates are so important.
There has been some inaccurate information circulating about vaccines, mostly stemming from a British study linking vaccines to autism.
We still continue to hear that vaccine caused autism, even though that's been debunked.
Repeatedly and thoroughly debunked.
You may have heard vaccination causes autism in 1 out of 110 children. Fuck that. Total bullshit. It doesn't.
The bill requiring children to be vaccinated has passed with bipartisan support. Every child must meet immunization standards before joining public schools, private schools, and daycares.
I would strongly encourage everybody, look at the science, look at the facts. CDC, the Center for Disease Control, can give you good information. Get your children vaccinated.
What's interesting to note about these media clips that they pulled out at the beginning of this movie is a very bold move to show the other side of the story first. And guess what? All of these people have in common that are on the news, the media, mainstream media. Where does most of their paycheck come from? The drug companies. Where does the drug companies get billions, hundreds of billions of dollars per year off of giving vaccinations to people by mandated? Oh, yeah, the drug companies do that. Oh, okay. Wow, that's weird.
I have waited a long time to tell my story, and I want to tell it truthfully.
This is a person that worked at the CDC that was working with the people in this movie to release the information that's public record, but they were hidden in a vault, and the only way to get the information out was to request it, a public information request. So this person told someone how to do that. This father, who was a professor who had an autistic child, who's been trying to research and figure out how this happened to his child, autistic, brain damaged child, and he could never get the hold of the information because he didn't know what to ask for.
Meet families with kids with autism, because I have been part of the problem.
My son, Stephen, was born in February of 1998. Steve, what does the cow say? Tweet, tweet. Doggy. Doggy. 2 weeks after his 15-month vaccines, then he lost all language. He lost all eye contact. You'd pick him up and he would just hang limp. This is a time where CDC was just starting to do these studies on vaccines and autism. As a scientist, I have over 60 technical and scientific publications in major international scientific journals, and I was contacting the CDC and was deeply critical of their studies. And so the CDC decided that the scientist who was going to interface with me at that time was Dr. William Thompson.
Because I was on his back, because he didn't like what I was saying about...
So, at first, the person assigned to this person's case from the CDC was not giving the information because he was instructed to not give up that information freely and just obscure it, and so it was just sitting in a vault. So, yeah.
With somewhere around the early 90s, shortly after I opened CARD, the growth of autism has been so high and so rapid that I've never felt like I could ever catch up anymore. From an official diagnostic perspective, the way that we define autism, we were looking at deficits in two areas. The first is social communication and social interaction. And in that area, we require 3 specific symptoms to be present. Symptoms such as no social emotional reciprocity, no non-verbal communication, that means eye contact, for instance, or no development of relationships. The second...
So, our son had these same attributes. I first noticed it when we started taking him to church and we drop him off in the Sunday school with the other kids. And when I would come to pick him up an hour or so, or maybe an hour, 15 minutes later, after the sermon, I would ask him, how did he do today? And the only thing that they would say is, oh, pretty good. He just really likes to play by himself. They say that every time. It's the only thing they say. Here's a video of my wife playing catch with our 8-month-old son. He's engaging, he's giggling, he's throwing the ball back to his mom. And he's 8 months old. And after he turned 1, he no longer wants to play catch or engage with people or giggle when he's engaged with. Never since after he turned 1. Oh, sorry, that was the banned one. This is the one I bought.
Required area.
Parents all telling the same story. My child got a vaccine, usually the MMR vaccine, and then that night or the next day broke out in a fever. And then when they came out of the fever, lost speech, lost the ability to walk, basically regressed into what we know as autism and never came back. Doctors used to be told to listen to their patient. That was
the most perfect parents that we could be.
Bella was born, and that was a wonderful experience.
Bella was just this angelic, perfect child. She hit all her milestones. I got pregnant with Billy quite quickly.
Bella, say hello to Billy.
Hello. We've now got a beautiful girl and a beautiful boy. Life was just amazing. So at 2, 4 and 6 months, Billy had his normal baby vaccines. A little bit snivelly, chesty, coldy after maybe the last one. So me, in my perfect mother mode, rushed to the doctor. Is he okay? Do I need to give him anything? Yes, you need to give him antibiotics, just to make sure there's not an infection in there. But it didn't clear up. Rushing back to the doctor, we need some more antibiotics. Let's just keep this going in him. And I remember my mother calling me out. My mother's a sort of homeopathic hippie, and calling out saying, what are you doing? You're chucking loads of antibiotics down your son. For what? And I'm saying to her, Mum, with all due respect, you're an artist, and they're doctors, so they know best. He was due his MMR vaccination.
I remember going to one of the visits, checkups for my son before he turned 1, and the doctor came out and said, are you good with the vaccines and everything for his when he comes in for his 1-year checkup? And I said, well, if that's what he needs, and the doctor said, well, do you want us to give all the vaccines at once, or some people had some concerns in the past, so some people have requested that we space them out and just do them one at a time. And I said, well, you're the doctor, you're the expert. You have studied this stuff for years and years and done way more research than we could ever hope to do. That's why we came to you. You should be making this decision, not us. And I've never been more wrong in my life.
12 months. So the morning, exactly to the day, my friend, she said to me, listen, I've heard that there may be a problem with this vaccine we're about to take Billy for, the MMR. And I said, Liz, are you crazy? What is the matter with you? If there was a problem with this vaccination, it would be headline news. The doctor would be calling me up saying, do not bother coming in. This is not a safe vaccine. None of that is happening. You're being negative, you're being careless, and you're listening to, some rumour that you heard somewhere. Billy could become deaf if I don't take him in now and get him this MMR.
Most of the evidence linking measles with autism is kind of settled down, and most of the doctors and scientists agree that it probably isn't the major cause.
I've been working in pediatrics for almost 20 years. I think most pediatricians view vaccines as they're the number one thing they do for kids. Okay, there we go. Hi, Mark.
All right.
All right. Okay. I'm young enough to not remember the days of kids in an iron lung because they were battling polio. Polio has essentially been eradicated from this country. In '98, the Wakefield study came out. My son had just been born. That study kind of pointed a finger at the MMR. As a parent, I was scared to give the MMR to my son. And as a matter of fact, I didn't give it to him on time because I wanted to see what additional studies would show. And over time, additional studies did show that, no, it's safe. And so he did get the vaccine. If everybody stopped vaccinating, we'd be going back to the dark ages.
In 1987, there was an MMR vaccine that was being used in Canada, produced by SmithKline Beecham. And that vaccine caused meningitis. It was recognized quickly, and that vaccine was withdrawn in Canada. However, in the same month that it was withdrawn in Ontario, it was licensed in the UK. The name was simply changed from Trivirix to Pluzarix. In the UK, it was used for 4 years, and likewise, it caused meningitis and had to be rapidly withdrawn. There was a public outcry. There was an acute loss of confidence by the public in vaccine policymakers, and the vaccine should, at that point, have been destroyed. It wasn't. It was then shipped to developing countries like Brazil, where it was used in a mass vaccination campaign. And there was an epidemic of meningitis, which was entirely predictable.
Temple walked at 12 months, so he had been walking for an entire month before we went in for the next set of vaccinations. The minute we walked into the pediatric office, Lou, his twin, she's screaming her head off. I mean, she knows what's going on. She doesn't want the doctor touching her. I look up, and there she's got the shots lined up. 3 for him, 3 for her. By the second shot, Lucinda had flipped herself over, so I had to stop looking at what I was doing, unstrap her, get her out. Well, the minute I get her out and I calm her down a little bit and I look over, he's screaming. I look at the shots and I notice that one of hers was gone. There are only 2 shots left for her. And I asked the nurse practitioner, I said, what happened to that other shot? She says, oh my goodness, I gave it to him. I said, which one was it? She said, it was the other MMR. I said, call the doctor. This baby is screaming his head off. You're giving him an extra shot. I don't know what the effects of that's going to be. We're leaving. And I left. So she never got her shots. I go home. This baby cried. I put him down on his little blanket. He starts banging his head on the floor, banging his head on the floor. The next morning, I go in his room, and he's staring into space, and he's looking around like this, as if, you know, he's a bit paralyzed. Not the baby who was always doing this every morning and smiling for me to get him out of bed. And I pick him up and he does this. And I said, what has happened to my baby? So I called the clinic and I said, I think my child's had adverse reaction to those shots yesterday. She says, no. I'm waiting for a representative from Merck. I don't think it was a reaction to that. I take him to see the pediatrician that I know. And she looks at me, she closes the door, and she whispers, she says, Sheila, I believe he has autism. I said, what? Like Rain Man? She says something like that. I'm going to refer you out to a neurologist. And we go see the neurologist the next week. He says he has every classical symptom of autism. I do not believe this. I was angry. When he was explaining to me what Canner's autism is, he told me he was born that way. I said, no, he wasn't. Temple's twin is amazing. She is fluent in 3 languages. She speaks French like a native. She is an A student. She plays classical piano. With all of the guilt that I feel from that day, one of the best decisions I made for her was to walk out of that office without her being vaccinated. At the end of this journey, I don't want to be one of those mothers standing there saying what I wish I would have, could have, should have done. I want to be able to say, I gave it everything that I had. I gave it my best shot. His twin is going into the 11th grade. And for someone who still can't manage to cross the street, now am I grateful he's here? You bet. I'm grateful my son lived. And I was so naive that he would live a fulfilling life. He would end up being a happy man, having a family. My dreams for him. And every year that goes by, the older my son gets, the further that dream seems to be.
I know. I see that mom sitting on the couch with her son, and I know exactly what is going through her mind. Because I also feel the same way. Because I did this to my son